this is episode number 1 of a series of video interviews that I'm going to be doing called Your Stories. So I wanted to just add something into the mix in the TMS community that is kind of everyone's voice, really. So I know there's quite a lot of places where you can pick up success stories of people that have overcome TMS, or, you know, podcasts and other interviews and stuff like that. But I thought there's so many people in this community that have a voice and have a story and have, moments in their journey where they've got over mini milestones, or they've come to a point where they're having pain-free days, or they've found a modality that particularly works for them, that you might not necessarily hear about. So there's lots of Facebook groups and stuff like that where people share these bits and bobs of stories. But I thought it'd be really cool to just add something else into the mix where we can hear from lots more people and connect face to face and just make this community a little bit more interactive and fun. I think this space can be a little bit depressing and sad and pain, suffering. So I think it'd be nice to just add a little bit more conversation, fun, and just shoot the shit with a few people that I find interesting or have some, story to tell, basically. So today we have interviewee number 1, Charlotte Faul. She's part of the TMS community. I met her through the Journal Speak group by Nicole Sachs. And I don't know all that much about her. So we're going to bring her in now and she can tell us part of her story and what's helping her and where she is right now. So she's joining us from Singapore. I'm just going to let her in now. And this is the awkward part where it goes quiet for a bit when people are joining. Hey.
Hello, I'm in. Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Should we pretend that we've not spoken yet?
Yeah, let's make it seem like it's the first time. That we haven't been testing technology.
So I've just given you a little bit of an intro as to what we're trying to do, and just find out a little bit about your story. When things started for you, what sort of symptoms you have, and where you're at right now, basically, and then we can just take the conversation from there. So if you want to just introduce yourself and your story a little bit.
Yeah, cool. So hi, I'm Charlotte. I am 35 and I'm on the phone here from lockdown in Singapore. We moved out here. You might hear my husband and my son running around in the background. We moved out here a week ago, and we're doing our 2-week quarantine in a hotel. So that's why I'm sitting in a sort of big brothery type chair. I've had chronic pain for just over 15 years. So it started kind of when I was sort of 19, 20. And now I look back and think it might have been to do with kind of going to uni at the time. But my pain is, my symptoms are sciatic pain. So it's always been, and it's kind of as long as I can remember. I went traveling when I was sort of in my early 20s with one of my best mates, and it was always left side pain. And I remember she used to have to carry my bag quite a lot. So it was never awful, but it sort of impacted life in quite a few ways. And then gradually over the years, I've done what a lot of people have done. I think it's not just thousands, it might even be like tens of thousands of pounds I've spent on like physios, chiropractors, MRIs, like massage. I've had all the nerve conductor tests. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're quite they basically recreate the nerve pain. So I've had all these kind of horrible.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Another friend of mine's had that same thing as well. It's incredibly painful, right?
Yeah, it is. It's really, it sort of just brings it all back. And I listed about 8 or 9 different specialists in secondary care. And until recently, which I'm talking about in a sec, no one could find anything wrong, which was mega infuriating. And I was still able to exercise a bit, but it was kind of gradually getting worse and worse throughout my 20s. And then about 5 years ago, they found on my MRI a Tarlov cyst, which is basically where there's, the way I sort of understand it is there's a weakness, or that's what they say, in the nerve, and then it forms a cyst out of the nerve onto your nerve, and so it squashes the nerve is basically what I was told. So
never heard of this
and they said And there's a few people on the group who have mentioned it, but it's not common. And well, I now know they're actually quite common and very rarely symptomatic, which I sort of found out later. And I had a lot of frustration because no one could help me, and I was desperate for someone to just find something because the pain was just getting worse and worse. I had a baby a couple of years ago, which didn't seem to change it, which everyone said it would. And then a year ago, almost to the date-ish, it was kind of early November, I got off a flight when we were in the UK from holiday, and I stood up and it just exacerbated massively. It was suddenly like agonizing nerve pain, and the pain it'd been pretty bad, but it was just about manageable. And I was in absolute agony, and I couldn't sit down. And that was a year ago, and I've basically been off work since then, and kind of being pretty much, I'm sitting now, which is nice, and I try and do it as much as I can, but I spend kind of 70-80% of my time lying down on my back. And I've got a toddler, as I mentioned, as well, which is a bit tough. And in January, so a year ago when this all got worse, I was desperate looking for someone who could help me. I found a surgeon in the US who said, oh yeah, Tarlov cysts, they do cause problems. And I found a guy in the UK who basically agreed to operate. And he, we can talk about fear, but he used language like, the nerves squash like a pancake, so I had this image of like my nerve is completely compressed. And the Facebook group I use, which is all well-intentioned for the Tarlov cysts, would talk about like it leads to nerve damage if you don't have the surgery, but the recovery is 5 years, like all this stuff that was just filling my head with like, oh my God, this is horrendous.
Those sort of groups can just drive you into a pit of despair, can't they? I mean, that's just the worst thing. You think they're going to be supportive, and you think that is just what's going to fix you. So why wouldn't you join in those communities? But they can just totally send you the other way.
Yeah, they really do. And there's so many people who've had this surgery, and what was tough is some of them like woke up and they were better. So I was thinking like, come on, like this has got to be it. It's got to be it. And I had the surgery in January, and the consultant, the way he spoke about it being so major made me wish it was like a slip disc or something. He was, it was like, with slip disc, we can guarantee you'd only done 9 of these surgeries. And so the whole lead up to it was really traumatic. And the actual surgery and being in hospital itself was really, really tough. Back surgery is bad enough as it is without them like cutting into a nerve. And so the whole process was, I'm sort of, I've trying to nearly moving on from it now, but it was in January this year, and it was pretty rough, and it didn't work. So I continue to be in pain today.
And is the pain, is it I mean, not to necessarily go like madly into the symptom side of things, but I think it's really important to sort of acknowledge everybody's individual story and everyone's individual symptoms, because I think sometimes in this community it can be very much like, don't talk about your symptoms, nobody wants to know about that, it doesn't matter TMS. And even though we know that, I think it's really important for people to feel understood and seen, and maybe even connect with people that are on a similar sort of journey. So did you find that after your surgery that got worse, or was it kind of same level, or once your sort of her surgery healing had happened, did you feel same?
Yeah, and actually this was really interesting. And I didn't know about TMS at the time, but when I look back, this was one of the first things for me that made me realize. So one of the most horrible pains I experience is like the back of the thigh. And it's like I'm being electrocuted. And I think a lot of people who've had it will feel that. And it felt like loads of electrodes. And I would, when I woke up from surgery, that had gone. And the consultant said, it's gone really well. It's one of the easiest I've done. You're going to recover. And I didn't feel that pain then. It doesn't sound that long, for 3 weeks. But I had this. So I had all the surgery pain, but that was, I knew that would get better. But the nerve pain, that pain had gone. And I now think that was probably just because he'd told me it'd gone well. And so my brain was like, oh, cool. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're fine.
The fear had gone, sort of thing.
Yeah. And it had. And I remember my husband being like, babe, like, it's going to be okay. But then after 3 weeks, I was going out for dinner with a friend of mine who's got a toddler the same age as mine. And we were just going for like an hour, and I was getting nervous because I was going to be sitting. And then we went for dinner, and the pain came back, and it's been the same ever since. That everything had always been for like 15 years on my left-hand side. And then I woke up one morning and I'd started to think, Charlotte, you need to keep an eye on your right hand side, because I'm using my right leg for everything. Like if I'm on the floor, it's the one I use to pull myself up.
Yeah,
And I
like
woke up
compensation
one morning.
strength or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then woke up one morning and the right leg was in nerve pain, and it was the same. And I get a lot of numbness and tingling, and it feels like water's running down my leg. And I woke up and I felt that, and I was just like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's too much. Like, how have I had the surgery and then it's got worse? And then, to cut a long story short, I had another MRI and the consultant said, oh, we're really sorry, but you've now got one on the right and it's grown. And that's what it was. And that for me was just like, I was just completely devastated. I was still really struggling from the first surgery. And then suddenly I thought, I have to have it again, but it's not going to work. So,
and then just emotionally, how like you cope with that as well. It's not just the pain as well, the psychological effect. It's like a vicious circle, isn't it? It's like, you know, PMS is caused by your emotional world, and then your physical world takes over, and then your fear gets injected back in, and then it's like a vicious circle of like fear, pain, fear, pain, fear, pain. So where did you, I didn't mean to cut you off there, sorry. Where did you kind of find this work then? How did you find TMS in all of this story? Like when did that happen?
Yeah, so it was really interesting, and I've had a few people say this. I was seeing a psychologist at the time, but she was more of like a pain therapist, and again, she'd said things to me like, you know, you've got the perfect scenario to be in, you know, to really fear what's going on, and so it was really reinforcing it. And then I was looking up, I think I was looking up like mental health support for pain, and I don't know whether that activated it, but I got an Instagram advert for Curable, and I was like, oh wow, cool, I've not seen this. And I went onto that and I sort of played around with it. And there was the recovery stories. And I remember thinking, I don't want to listen to them because they'll make me feel, I don't know why. I just didn't want to hear a recovery story because I think I was so skeptical. And I remember it was a guy called Aaron. He was the bottom story on Curable. And he was talking about sciatica and all of this and how he'd healed. And I was suddenly like, oh my God, like this is amazing. This is it. And then through that, so that was how I first found, sort of learned about TMS. And through that, I found Nicole, the Cure for Chronic Pain, and her interview and podcast. And that really sort of opened up everything from then. And then I found Dan and the Tell Me About Your Pain podcast. But yeah, it was all thanks to social media.
Yeah, they are shit hot at their Facebook advertising Curable, aren't they? I remember when I'd forgotten about that actually. When I started to get into researching this, it was there all the time, and I was like, okay, this has got to be, and it looks so credible and well presented and stuff like that. When I started researching myself, it was like there was so many pieces of content online that just seemed, is that too good to be true? Like that looks together a little bit wishy-washy. Maybe this is woo-woo. Maybe this is witchcraft. Like. But it was one of the main things that I found that really looked like very credible. And it's obviously lots of practitioners in the background of that and psychotherapists and stuff. So
yeah.
So where did you go? Where did things progress from there then? Like what did you do Curable?
Yeah, I did Curable for a bit, and I actually still do. I probably do it like a couple of times a week. And I did what I think probably a lot of people do, which is I did all of the like listening, and I didn't do any of the writing. And actually, writing for me is I was like, no, I don't understand this. But emotions. I was a working farmer.
Don't open the door to that.
Like I was like, oh no, I'm just going to listen and learn. And that was all and then I thought like, this is good. And then when I wasn't better, I was like, okay, shit, I'll listen to one of these. But
find another podcast.
Yeah, quick. I did. Yeah, exactly. I was like, I move on from this TMS. But yeah, what happened there? So then I listened to, I think I listened to Nicole's, I think it was her first podcast, and also the YouTube videos talking about journaling and all of that and what it means. And I'd been doing some of Curable, but then when I found that, I thought, okay, that it felt like something I could actually start doing to heal, not just listening and learning. And it just resonated. I just thought, and I remember hearing about the personality traits.
Right.
And there's definitely a bit of perfectionism in me, but the one that really stood out was the people pleasing. And the more I've done the journaling, the more I'm like a bit embarrassed, to be honest, about the extent to what I do to please people. Like,
me too.
Oh my God. I mean, it's just really, and I really hope those people don't ever watch this, because they're going to be like, oh, that's why she was doing it. Like,
we could put a different name on this if you want. Maybe put a beard on, beard filter on you.
Maybe with like a face mask or something, like, I don't know, someone from Paw Patrol or whatever. And so it was the people pleasing, and also the like needing to be liked, which is just like just been, and I thought everyone was like that. And actually they're not. And I really admire a lot of people who sort of, know their own minds, and they don't, it's not they don't care what people think, but and that's just not me. Like, to the point that I say stuff I don't even mean, just to like
just to not rock the boat or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that started to hit, and then I found Dan Buglio, I hope I'm saying his surname right, his videos, which it was like everyone that day was the one I needed to hear. I remember he did one not that long ago. Did you find the same?
Yeah. Like literally, you seeing inside my head. And Nicole as well. What she posts every day is like, what the fuck are you reading? Are you actually reading my journal? What's going on?
I know. on her Instagram post, I'm like, oh God, thank you so much. It's literally
exactly.
He did one recently, and it was like, it feels so physical. And I think I'd literally been writing. I was like, oh, this just feels so physical. And then he did that video. So I've learned a lot from that. And I'd say it's just been absorbing it. And I think this is one of the things with learning about TMS, especially, we all know the medical model, plus what I do is pharma. And actually, I really believe in TMS massively. And it didn't take that long for me to buy into it. But I think it is a bit like learning a new language. Like you have to keep reading and listening and filling in gaps and going, oh yeah, okay, I did hear that, but now I'm hearing it differently and I get how I'm doing it. So I see it as like a whole new education and a sort of new way of being.
You can listen and listen and listen and listen for months, but one day you'll hear it.
Yeah.
One day you'll go, oh God, that's what that meant. Like you understand it, and you understand it the whole way long. But I think you're absolutely right. It's like teaching a puppy new tricks, isn't it? It's kind of like, you get it, you see it, you understand it, but until you're actually living it, it does just take time.
Yeah, it really does. And the other podcast that I really like, which is, I don't know whether it's a slightly different angle. One of the things I want to try and get my head around is how they all work together, but I sort of think they can do, is the Tell Me About Your Pain podcast with Alan Gordon. And the reason I love that is I definitely recognize in me there's a lot of what do they call it, like conditioned learned behaviors with like fearing sitting down, standing, walking, which are all the real triggers for me. And I do think I've got a massive, and I'm sure a lot of people are the same, conditioned response to that. So I really like that side of things as well. Is I think probably for me, maybe this is how they fit together. It all stemmed from repressed emotions and all the stuff we were just talking about. And I remember my mum saying to me, and my dad once described it as, you always had like a nervous energy when you were young. And my mum sort of said, you were always worried about what people thought. So I think that was where it came from. I then think I've just learned, this hurts, don't bend down, definitely don't sit down.
I think, and I was just going to say, I think the main sort of theme that runs through all of these modalities is the feeling of safety. That over anxious, over worried, over concerned about what other people think, and wherever that's derived from, wherever that's come from your childhood, from your upbringing, from experiences, whatever that is, it's that generic kind of feeling of just uncertain, unsafe, not feeling settled. And that ties in with what Alan Gordon teaches from the more sort of somatic side of things. And also in the sort of more journaling, emotion-based stuff and the mindset stuff from Dan. So I think, although at first when you learn about all this stuff, it can seem like a bit contradictory, the different types of ways that these learning are presented, I think the underlying current is always like feeling safe. And some of us have,
I totally agree,
repressed emotion and, horrible things that happened, and, some more than others. But I think, like with everybody, whatever you've been through has been your traumatic experience or your unsafe experience or whatever it is that got you to this point. It doesn't really matter, if if your story is different to my story, is the fact that we've both come to the point where we both feel that unsafe kind of really hyper vigilant state, regardless of where that came from or how that happened. And I think that's probably why certain modalities work for certain people and others for others, is because, you know, just training yourself to feel safe and indifferent to your symptoms might be enough for some people. Some people might have, you know, horrific PTSD that they need to really work through their emotions in a psychological way. So, you know, for some of the teachers of this work, it's like very focused on one different specific modality. I think it totally depends on the person, and maybe a combination. Oh, hello. A combination of those things. That it just depends what works for each individual person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It massively does. And I agree. And I think I like, you know, I like the fact that there are these different options and giving them all a go. But I also think he's like just above my head on the way I can see. Sorry. Cute. But yeah, and I also think, especially with the stuff that Nicole talks about and the journaling, I feel like everyone would benefit from it. And I think for me, it's been just mind-blowing. And I bought her book. Have you read the book?
Yeah, it's right here on my nightstand.
And and I think the thing for me that just blew my mind is what, you know, as I mentioned, I've spoken to different people and I've seen different therapists and a clinical psychologist and all that. And I've not even met Nicole. I've just read her book. And it was like, I got more from that. That resonated more than anything I've had. And I've had hours and hours. And it's like, I've never got anywhere close to it. So I think it's such great work to do.
Definitely.
Hard.
It's
and
really
I'm definitely
hard.
Resisting it, some of it.
Yeah, I think that's really important to say, is that, you know, I think the vast majority, and loads of posts in her group and stuff, are always like, I get this, I resonate with it, I know I probably need to do it, but opening, and you said it yourself, you know, that looking into that Pandora's box is just too frightening or just too worrying, or, you know, I don't want to dig up my past. What if I get stuck there? What if I get stuck in a depressive state and stuff like that? And I guess everyone's experience is different again, but certainly for me, it was daunting, and it was like, oh God, you know, you spend your whole life resisting thinking about those sort of things and fighting addressing things that happen to you, but it doesn't hang around forever. Like, you know, it might take you down for a while, and you might have really bad days where you think you're never going to get out of that cesspit, but it does lose its grip eventually. And I think that's the beauty of it, that it's a really amazing free tool that you can just tap in and out of. Now that I've come out of the pain cycle, I use it to de-stress as and when, just to dip into, you know, and it's become that kind of like, it is like a talk therapy without having to really necessarily face anyone. And you can be so brutally honest and so truthful in there. You would never necessarily even say that to a therapist or to a friend or to you.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So
I really agree with that.
So what, any other personality traits that you reckon that you have that are, you know, super TMSy, that you see yourself in, you know, the stories, or that's definitely me? Is there anything else that made you go, this is definitely happening to me, this is what's going on?
I think it was the personality types, and I can't remember, someone somewhere speaks about like it being like a third of people, and I think that helped, like in the general population, when they've analysed personality types. And if I look at like my group of mates as well, I can think like, actually I can see which one of us are more like that, and my mates who I'm like, oh, like how can I learn to be more like them, and not
right.
But I think it was that, but it was also, so it was the personality traits. The other bit that made me realise was the inconsistent patterns of the fact that I had these 3 weeks without pain after the surgery, and also that like when I'm with my couple of like my really good mates, when I'm really having a nice time, or I do, like even now I'm uncomfortable now, but I'm really in it. I'm really in this moment with you and thinking about it. And when I'm laughing with my mates, or we're like reminiscing about stuff, it feels much better. And I was just, and I think when I realized that, I thought, this feels, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. There was one thing Dan said to me. I had a coaching session with him, because he said, like, you've got to stop. He said, stop seeing yourself as recovering from an an like let go of that. And I do think kind of like taking that bag off for me. Yeah, it was like really help. And so it's all this kind of stuff that it just made me think, I think that this might be TMS. And it is hard, because I did have surgery, and I can never, you know, it's not just the scar on my spine, it's the
but
there's clips in my
it can kind
back.
of define you though, can't it? It can get so like oppressive and go on for so long, especially as long as you've been kind of going through this. Like it is your whole life.
Yeah.
It becomes your label almost, doesn't it? Like, I you know, this is who I am. It's weird how you kind of lose who you really are for a bit.
Yeah, massively. Yeah. And that's been quite difficult as well, like not being able to work. And I lead quite a big team at work, and sort of not being able to do that, and just losing my identity really. Like I wasn't able to do much with my son for ages, and my husband did a lot. And when I was in a really, really dark place, there were times where I just thought, they don't need me, like they're having fun, I'm like, and you just become just such a hindrance, you know. You feel like I'm causing all this emotional worry and everything for my family. You just think like, I don't know, it just
it just seeps out, doesn't it? It affects everyone and everything around you, especially in your partnership and in your home, especially with a new baby as well. That must have been really, really tricky and challenging to deal with. So you said that you had some, you know, you have definitely have improvements when you're feeling good, your mood's great, or you're having like really sort of key distractions and stuff. Have you had anything that's like you could possibly share that people might be able to use as like, I don't know if tips is the right word, but like anything that you do or you found that really help to relieve your symptoms, or any sort of like milestones or something like that you can share that you felt that have really helped you along the way, even though you're not like out of the woods really, you know, that's something that might help someone that's listening.
I think the biggest bit for me was and I think it's Nicole who first, where I first heard about it, she talks about everything, I can't remember how she says it, but everything you do, you either do it with fear or love. And it was the fear. And I think a massive like aha moment for me was when I realized like everything I do is driven by fear, not just everything to do with pain, like the whole way I act. And so I think for me, like really sitting with what I'm hearing and thinking about what does that mean for me has massively helped, because actually I think I'm pretty crippled by fear in many ways, like in everything I do. And so I think and especially when I was starting this, and this would be something I'd recommend to people, is like write down snippets that resonate and keep them and save them, because suddenly you hear all this stuff and you forget. And I found things that really meant something to me, I would write them down and then I'd refer back to them. But I think that one of the biggest bits was fear, and trying not to fear what I do, and reframing how I do things and doing them with love. And I love her example of you know, go for a massage, not because it's going to make your back better, but because you love massages. And I was like, oh my God,
it's a totally different awareness, isn't it? A totally different awareness. And that does take time, like you said earlier. Like it might take you months to actually realize that you're even fully fearful at all times. When, you know, hindsight is a beautiful thing. You can look back and say, shit, I've lived literally the last however many years afraid constantly. That level of awareness is like the start of you being able to detach yourself from that old pattern. So that's a huge step in itself. That's a really good point.
It is massively.
Any other like aha kind of light bulbs that you've found or felt along the way, even if they're just momentary changes or breakthroughs?
So probably the first one, probably two other things that really helped me. One is the concept of indifference. And I think it was Dan talks a lot about this, and maybe other people, and I posted on Nicole's group recently. Before we moved out here, I was staying with between my mum's and my dad's. I was staying with my dad. They would take my son to the farm, and I decided to go along, mainly because I think I was worried that they were like, I don't know, not going to wash his hands properly or something. It was like driven by fear. I was like, COVID is everywhere. And I went to the farm with them, and I was really nervous about it. It was a long journey. I was going to be standing for hours, which is like a complete nightmare for me. And I posted on the group because I actually went and loved it. And there were so many times where I was thinking, I'm in pain, I need to lie down, And I just had like Dan's videos in the back of my mind, like just indifference, like it's there. You know, it's there, but it doesn't mean anything. But whatever, exactly.
Yeah.
Don't put any meaning to it. Yeah. And I was sort of doing it, and I was like, and my son like got stuck up the top of a slide. He's 2, and he was like climbing up with like the 5-year-olds. And I just look at my dad thinking, oh, I'm not sure you should be getting up there. So I climbed up, like it wasn't that many steps, and pulled him down. And because it's always my husband who does those kind of things with him. It's always my husband who picks him up, helps him, is like the one to look after him. And so that was amazing. And it meant so much for me to be able to take him. It felt just incredible. And I think that was when I was like, you know what, I know I'm uncomfortable, but like I'm getting somewhere now. Like I get the mindset shift. And I think that's massive. So I think the indifference is a big piece. And then the other one for me, which I mentioned earlier, is I think they call it graded motor imagery. So I actually do, and I learned it from Curable. Before I'm doing things, I've done quite a lot of looking at pictures of people sitting at desks. And I think there's stages where they talk about looking at pictures of people doing the thing that you fear. Yeah. And then you slowly practice doing it. So like with the flight over here, I was like looking at pictures of people being on the plane and all of this kind of stuff. So trying to ease my body and teach myself that I'm safe doing things that I naturally fear.
Just exposing yourself to that kind of environment or that visual. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And so that probably, I don't know if that's for everyone, but certainly for me, maybe that's for more if you've got kind of like, I don't know, back issues or neck or shoulder, but that's really helped me. And yeah, I think they're probably the main things. I think when you're starting off as well, like I said earlier, it is important just to start absorbing. I think I got straight into like, right, just journal. And my first journal was like, weather was nice today. I saw my friend for a cup of coffee. Like,
it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it was. And then I think I watched the videos. And I heard Nicole like, people aren't meant to read this, and that was just so freeing. I was like, I hate so a lot of people. It was
scraping and
exactly. And then being like, okay, but now actually I understand why you're like this, and it has really helped with some relationships in my life to then build that kind of compassion. But yeah, I think that's been good. And also Dr. Howard Schubiner, his course, I'm doing that as well, which I forgot to mention, which
you're reading them all at once. Well, aren't you?
Yeah. I really like it. And it's sort of, this is what I mean by it is repeating a lot of stuff I've heard, but that's cool. Like I like that because it's just reinforcing it in a different way. And he talks a lot about the science of pain. And that is just more reinforcing that this is, that it's an emotional issue and that there's nothing wrong with me. And I haven't started the kind of 28-day part, but I've started reading the book, and I'd recommend that as well. But I just wouldn't do it all at once. It's too much.
Yeah. You can just become a bit of a student of your own pain, can't you? And overwhelm yourself.
Yeah.
And then that in turn just slams you into TMS overdrive and over perfectionistic. And again, that, like you said before, unlearning. And that's the title of his book, isn't it? Like unlearning your old patterns is really difficult. Like that takes a lot of time. I don't know if this has been the same for you, but I found that meditation's been amazing for just sort of letting go of that overactive, constantly doing, constantly thinking thing. Is literally training me to be more settled and more maybe indifferent as well. It's kind of, I don't know. It seems to be affecting me in more ways than I expected it to be, just from the calming point of view,
Yeah. Did you meditate before you started doing all the TMS work, or did that really come with?
I kind of learned about it through Nicole's teaching, really. I mean, I'd done bits and bobs in yoga and stuff before, but I found Sarno's book first. And then it's kind of sat on that for like about 2 years. Actually, I went back to doing exercise and stuff. I did bits and bobs that he recommended, but in the book that I read in Healing Back Pain, there wasn't a hell of a lot of information about kind of what to do next. So I was left a little bit. Okay, I'll go back to the gym and I'll believe that I've got TMS, but that wasn't enough for me. And it did get a bit better. Like it was manageable. In massive quote marks. But I then kind of just sort of threw in the towel a little bit, and I was just like, this is just not working. What the fuck's going on? I need something. Like, where's the next step? Like, Sarno's dead now. What do I do? And then down the rabbit hole found Nicole. So that was where it really, Saint Sarno. That's where it kicked off, and I just followed basically whatever, the exact steps that she kind of teaches: the journaling, meditation, patience, and kindness for yourself, and belief, which was already there. Like the belief was definitely already there. And I think it definitely did make a little bit of a shift in my mind when I did believe and I did start going back to exercise, but it didn't resolve the emotional side and the fear and that TMSy kind of mind, you know.
Yeah.
I think as well, something important to say that you touched on with your story about going up the slide to get your son. I think other than the fact that you kind of thought indifferently about that, I think in that moment as well, you must have been teaching your body that you were safe to do that. You were facing that fear of, I'm just going to go and get my son. Like, I'm not going to break. It might hurt, but I'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter what you're doing.
And it hurts. It hurts anyway at the moment.
Exactly.
So like, I might as well do the stuff, because
exactly,
surely I'm going to feel better doing that than not. And actually, it didn't hurt as bad as I would have thought it would if I'd not said you can do this, and it was fine. I certainly didn't feel any worse for it.
And I think when you felt that like massive explosion of pain at that time, I had the same thing happen to me, but it happened in bed for me in the night, so nothing actually happened. I was literally asleep and woke up like that. But I can't remember what I was going to say now. This is going to happen, explosion, by the way, people. My brain synapses quite a lot.
What's she going to say?
I can't remember.
But you had a sudden explosion of pain.
Yeah, but there was something I was talking about before that. Anyway, teaching yourself that's it. If you're doing exercise, or you may be going back to some gentle walking, gentle yoga and bits and bobs like I was, you might still be hurting, and it might flare a bit as well. But I think that, the consistency of teaching yourself, much like teaching yourself about the modalities and teaching your brain to be safe and stuff like that, it just takes time for your body. Well, not your body. It takes time for your brain to realize that what you're doing is safe, and you're feeling safe doing it. It does definitely take time.
Yeah. And this is where I think what you're doing with the yoga is amazing. And I know I've described it to you as, for me, it's the missing piece of the puzzle, because one of the things I've been really struggling with is moving, and sort of not really knowing how to do it. And what's crazy is I've done loads of yoga. I was actually training yoga and Pilates is very different, but I was training in my spare time to be a Pilates instructor, because I so believed in it, and I thought, oh, this will heal me, and it didn't. Now I can't even finish the course at the moment. So like gentle movements and all of that, but it just didn't occur to me to try doing gentle yoga, because I was so worried about it. And then when I started seeing your stuff, I think it's amazing, because I was like, this is it. And your classes are so gentle and reassuring. And I think for me, if the more people who can get involved in that, and slowly learning that you're safe and teaching your body to move in a way that's in a safe environment, and it's someone who understands TMS, and for me, that makes a massive difference. I don't know whether it should do, but it does for me. So I think that's a big part of it as well, is teaching yourself to move. And
I think that definitely for me, that when I kind of trained in it, and I used it myself, and it's weird that I didn't really put two and two together, that when I went for the teacher training, I was like, oh, I could probably weave this into the TMS stuff. I had no idea. I was just like, this has been a lifelong goal. I'm going to do it. I'm well enough to do it. It's weird that I didn't really figure that out until much later. Like, hello. But part of the teaching in Sarno's book, the healing back pain book, and the other ones as well, but part of literally his top 3 priority things for you to do is get back to doing what you were doing before the syndrome hit you. Like, what do you enjoy? What brings you joy? Like Marie Kondo says, like, does this spark joy in your life? Like, what do you actually enjoy? If you like walking, then walk. Okay, if you're like a triathlete or whatever, maybe don't go that far, but bringing yourself back into what your life was before this shit actually kicked off is a massive part of this. I think from various sides, from teaching yourself that movement is safe, from getting your physical body actually moving from a stiff sedentary position, and also just bringing some level of happiness back into your life. And Dan also says this quite a lot, get away from the whole studying your pain thing for a while, and find out where's your life gone. Like, what do you actually enjoy? And for you, being in a new country, and as daunting, as weird as that must be, especially in quarantine, like having a young son and a new life to look forward to. And, you know, it's quite nerve-wracking, I'm sure, in some aspects, but you've got so much stuff to look forward to. And if I could just give you a snapshot, I mean, wish this was possible, a snapshot of what your life is going to look like when you are pain-free, that would just like propel your fear out of your head and give you something to, you know, maybe it's something that you could do in your like visualization journaling, or however it is that you do that visualization techniques, is to just actually, okay, let me plan something. And this is a funny story, actually. When I was sort of coming out of pain, I was having pain-free days. I was planning a holiday to Australia last year. So when I started doing the journal, I can't remember now exactly when it was. It was around the same time it was about a month into journaling or something like that, or 6 weeks in. And I started to have pain-free days. And then I started to plan our holiday to Australia. And it was like, I did it over a few days, but I actually noticed how much that affected my symptoms and mood, just planning something for our future. And I think the same sort of thing happened when I started to plan India. When my friend Annika did the same course I did, she went in January and I went later in March. She said to me, you know, I never thought I'd be good enough to do the training, full stop. She went and I was like, oh my God, did you know how to do head sounds before you went? Like, did you need to know, could you do the splits? Like, I was really worried about what I needed to do physically. And she said, you know, they teach you how to teach yoga. They teach you the philosophy of yoga. They teach you what yoga really means. They teach you the alignment and all of that, and how to teach other people and correct other people. You don't have to be an Olympic yogi to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just like, fuck, I can actually do that. I'm going to do that. And I wasn't like necessarily 100% pain free at that point, but I was like, okay, I can actually do that. And just planning that was pivotal, I think, in like propelling me into full on pain free. Which is amazing. Just having that sort of motivation, I suppose, and a positive outlook. And I can do this. And I guess, like you said before, like the fear factor was removed. Well, not maybe removed, but like diminished, definitely.
And did that? I love this story, because I think that's such a good example of something you might not have done previously.
Yeah.
Was it once you booked it? Did you suddenly feel like, okay, who knows how it's going to go, but actually I can do this? Was it that freeing feeling of like, I think I can do this?
It was like probably the most exciting thing I've ever planned for myself. I don't think I've ever planned anything just for me, actually. And that was something that I had dreamt of. And you know, people say this to you, like, oh, if you don't know what to do with your career, you don't know what to do with your life, what do you love? What do you enjoy? What would you do with your life if you had a choice? I never really thought, you know, ages ago, I never thought that would be it. But I've always been obsessed with yoga. I've always loved it. And like when she said that to me, I must thank her actually for that. When she said whatever it was she said, but the meaning was, of course you can do that. Why wouldn't you? And then I looked into the pricing of it and I was like, oh my God, in India, it's like probably cheaper than just getting a flight to the States.
Yeah.
So I was
and what an amazing place to go as well.
Yeah. Oh, it was fucking amazing. Super challenging. Like, you know, I'd had major flare-ups and like major, I can't do this moments. Literally every day I spent just sweating and freaking out and like self-sabotage, and it was a massive part of the healing journey just doing that, honestly. But I think that feeling of having a purpose, I suppose, or having something to look forward to, I mean, even if you just planned something that never really came to fruition, visualizing a life that you might have in the future, or, you know, without I'll never have that kind of feeling on top of it, I think that was massive. Like I got a real boost of motivation and like happy feeling and joy feeling and doing something for yourself. And I never really used to be kind of into self-care and stuff either. Like I wouldn't sleep properly. I wouldn't eat great. I'd drink loads. I'd party loads and stuff like that. And I never really used to think that would necessarily influence my life. But now I'm 41 and it fucking has. Now I eat clean and I drink less and, you know, I don't party anymore and I've become a right old fuddy-duddy. But my back doesn't hurt.
But I feel great. But I think I'm listening to this, I love this because it's something you said then that made me realize, until very recently, like probably even the last like month, I didn't even bother thinking about what the future would be. I'd written it off. That's the only way I could describe it. It was just there wasn't going to be anything. This was it. And there was going to be no joy. And actually I'd say to myself, if the most I can do is make sure that is stay around and make sure that my son, like, you know, grows up feeling loved, then that's it. There was nothing about
you,
like, you know, no, not to, and then recently I've started, and I think on Nicole's course she has one, you know, what would the future look like, and I found it really tough. And I know another thing that I've realized is I hate the pain, but more than anything, but I'm starting to see how it in a weird way does keep me safe from stuff that I've been holding in, but also from like having to do stuff that I find really hard in life, like really in this weird way, actually having to lie down the whole time and stay indoors and not go and see people. Has kept me safe from a lot of stuff. And that was a bit of a kind of slap in the face when I realized it. And I don't want to be like that, but it's hard to actually, like, it's like stepping stones. That's the only way I think I'm going to work it out, is like, so we've moved out here, which is major, but I'm still indoors all the time. I will be, you know, how do I kind of work my way out of that? So it's a tough one. It feels like there's still quite a lot to do.
Yeah, definitely. But I think you've now got an opportunity where, you know, you can allow yourself to, and I think it's a real personal thing as well, to plan something just for you. Like, I know you've got a really young child and stuff, but if your husband is working kind of from home and he's around more and stuff, maybe there's more stuff that you could work into your day, that, you know, even just discovering the city a bit or whatever, finding a place you can go and practice your Pilates, or maybe there's some clinical Pilates you go to, something like that, where you're putting time into yourself. And I know that you know, you come to my yoga and stuff like that, which is brilliant, but if you can plan something that is just for you and brings you some sort of level of joy, whether it's just a trip somewhere or something like that, and whether you even end up doing it or not is by the by, just to bring yourself that feeling of like that bubbles up inside and makes you fizz, will really help you to break out of that, like there's no sort of future to be looking forward to or to engage in. You know?
And I agree. And as you I was listening to you talking there, thinking, like, my first instinct was, but I've caused so much burden to everyone. Like, how could I possibly do something for myself? How like, I don't deserve to go and like. So I think that's no, I agree. It's probably something I need to journal.
Also, like, big part of Nicole's teaching is, you know, massive top priority, patience and kindness for yourself. You've not done anything wrong. Like, you're not purposely making your husband look after your child his whole life, you know. I think that patience and kindness for yourself is something that I've only just started to really notice or put into practice myself. Is really priority. And I was quite lucky that I was working from home as well, and I could kind of manage my hours. Like, you're off work at the moment, so you've got time to put into yourself, but that feeling of like burden, and I'm such a just a weight on everyone else's life, and I'm not there for my child and all of that, like that self-limiting stuff, self-sabotaging thoughts do keep you maybe stuck in a bit of a cycle where you can't really visualize anything outside of your yellow bubble chair, you know. Your big brother moment.
That's literally keeping me safe.
I mean, it can be something really tiny, like even if it's just one day a week that you say, or one afternoon a week or something, that you totally dedicate to yourself, and you plan ahead of what you're going to do, whether it's a massage or whatever the fuck, going for a walk in the botanical gardens or something, that you just take for yourself, and stepping outside of that, because you must find that, especially with a young child, that your bubble is like that's your whole life, especially now in quarantine. That must be just exacerbating it crazy, but it does become such a small little cave, doesn't it, of like what is outside of this. And it makes the outside world feel like a lot scarier in a way, because it's and it's and what's really gutting, and I'm sure lots of other people have felt this, is
I've always been like mega independent before all of this happened. You know, mum brought us up as, you know, you look after yourself, you know, and I was always like that. And so it's been, I'm surprised at how difficult I'm finding to try and find a way back. But I guess that's what it does to you when you've sort of gone through all of this, and this year's been weird and shit for everyone anyway. On top of that, with the surgery and all of that, like it started off crap. 2020 was meant to be like the amazing year, and you know, there's been some highlights, but it's been
it does just pile up though, doesn't it? I mean, then that's the reality of it. It does just pile up. But I mean, you've survived everything that's been thrown at you so far. So there's now a little opportunity where if you can carve out a little bit more, even if it's just every day a half an hour or an hour that you say that you know, you need absolute alone time to just do something else, step outside or whatever it is, to just find some kind of freedom from all of this as well, all of this learning and listening, and like modalities and all that shit.
It becomes a bit of an obsession, doesn't it? Like you've got to get away from it.
1,000,000%. And that is part and parcel of the type of personalities that we are, that it becomes our everything. It's something else to fucking lose your mind over, isn't it? Stepping outside of that cycle is going to really help you, especially given the new like lease of life in Singapore. Now you've got equally fearful of it, but you can maybe turn that around into see it through a bit of a different lens maybe. And I don't know, thanks for coming to my TED talk.
No, I agree. And the joke of it is, it was me who pushed to go out here because I was so desperate to go and do something different.
Really?
So, but no, I just needed it. I was like, let's go and do something different. And so it's my husband's job, and he's the mastermind who's got the job. But I was the one who was like forcing him to write an email because I just wanted to do something different. I was like, oh.
Well, you get to figure out what's going on in the city and go and learn about Singapore and go and eat all the laksa.
Oh, it's beautiful as well. It just it's lovely. I really want to. I'm hoping it makes a big difference, and it's a bit of a platform for changing things.
Definitely. So let me just have a look at my list of questions. I'm not sure if I've missed anything out.
How are we doing for time?
We're coming up to probably almost an hour. It's 11:11 as well.
Ooh.
Any other sort of books or resources that you could say that you've not mentioned yet that you've used that have been helpful for you? I think you've mentioned all the bits that you have used so far.
I think so. The stuff on your website as well, a bit of a plug for your own stuff.
Oh, cheers,
like thanks. the Sarah Blondin, I hope I'm saying her surname right. Oh my gosh, I know sometimes.
Yeah.
That was
break your heart, gorgeous, that, isn't it?
Yeah. So I really like the way you lay it out, and I do use your website quite a lot. I hadn't realised, I've got to admit, that you could log in and then save. So I was scrolling, and now I've got, and I save the stuff, including your yoga nidra. Nidra. I use yours as well, but otherwise I think I've mentioned everything.
Awesome. Do you have any questions or anything that you want to ask me about, maybe your own journey? Or I mean, I know we've had conversations before and stuff, we were pretending we didn't know each other, but I do know you. Anything that you I mean, and this can come after, I guess, once we share the video, there'll probably be more questions that come up. I know it's like you put on the spot a little bit when you do a video, but if there's anything that you want to cover, or any more little tidbits of information for anybody out there that is struggling like you, and I know that you're still, in the thick of it really, but if there's anything that you think that we've necessarily missed, I think you've probably said all there is to say about what the work that you've been doing and the different stuff that you follow. The
only one thing that I am interested in, because I'm pretty sure you spoke about this on Nicole's podcast, is boundaries. And I'd know when you did the podcast, sorry, with Nicole, I'd never even heard of boundaries. I didn't even know what it meant, and this idea of people pleasing. So I'm sort of trying to get my head around that. I guess I'd be interested in, have you got any, because there's stuff that's quite obvious for me, but I don't really know. I don't want to actually tell people. I don't really know how to form boundaries without just saying to people, by the way, moving forward.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure, I don't think it is that, but
it is kind of that simple, and it feels so horrific and alien and
Right.
hurtful and against every belief and every feeling you've ever made about how you deal with people, because you are a massive people pleaser and you never rock the boat and you say yes when you mean no. I think the
Yeah.
mini versions of that would be just to say, you know, if you don't want to do something that someone asks of you, would you would default into definitely, yeah, I'll do it right now for you, would be, you know, you don't have space in your calendar for that at the moment, or you don't have the bandwidth for that, or, you know, how about doing it this way instead of this way, to just totally accommodate
Yeah.
your feelings first before anything else. It's really difficult, but
Yeah.
you can start
Yeah.
small before. I mean, you'll probably know there's things in your life that trigger anxiety in you and trigger, and now you're aware of it. They trigger you into feeling, oh, fuck, I've said yes to that, or I'm continuing to do something that really makes me anxious to please other people or
Yeah.
to not rock the boat with other people. And family can be a really big one in this sense.
Mm.
And it can be
Mm.
really something really, really difficult to do because, you know, and you said yourself, you're not aware of what boundaries were before, and the majority of people don't.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
put a boundary in place with someone that doesn't understand that you're doing something just for your own self-care or your own space, they'll take that as some sort of attack or some sort of like, well, what have I done to upset you? Why am I being treated like
Yeah.
this, when in fact all you're doing is saying what you actually want and actually need. And
Yeah.
then the reaction to that boundary is, you know, pretty much on the other party's foot. Although it might, if you don't know what a boundary is, you never experienced it before, it might feel like, well, they're pissed off, or what have I
Yeah.
done to upset them? But you can definitely start small about, you know, maybe a boundary that you could put in place with your family right now, or your partner, you know, that you need this little space for yourself to go and escape the bubble of Charlotte and do something for yourself.
Yeah.
That's a boundary that you put in place to please yourself first. So it can be really small
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But then for me, like, I found through this work just what stuff triggered me the most. And when I felt uneasy or anxious about something, and it could be totally subconscious, but the more that you see it happening to yourself, the more obvious it becomes to what things trigger you and what creates anxiety in your life. And I'm trying now to just omit as much of anxiety as I possibly can, because I know that
Yeah.
anxiety turns into flare ups if I don't deal with it and I don't set those sort of
Right.
boundaries or, you know, face those kind of things. So it can be really uncomfortable at first to do. But the
Yeah.
more that you practice them and the more that you enforce them, the more
Yeah.
empowered you feel about your own space and your own care and it's basically just
Yeah.
prioritizing yourself.
Yeah.
Having a
Yeah.
small kid and being married is not easy to do that, but you know, if you
Yeah.
don't fill your own cup first, so to speak, then what have you got else to pour into anyone else's life, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's basically just prioritizing your gut instinct feeling about things.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess that's probably the easiest way to
Yeah.
explain it.
Yeah, it's a massive thing, and it's really come through in the journaling. And I'd like had no idea that I was doing it, and stuff that I do that just it completely exhausts me and stresses me out massively, just to like keep the peace everywhere.
Yeah.
And to the point that anyway, no, I
totally relate. It's exhausting. It's exhausting.
So exhausting.
And it's also,
it just
like
takes over everything as well.
Yeah,
it's like,
but like you said earlier, it's like learning a new language. It utterly is learning a new language, and this is like pulling you back from your constant people pleasing, constantly not rocking the boat, making sure everyone else is okay before yourself. It's changing that, and even if you're just chipping away at it slightly, it still feels utterly wrong and alien and like, fuck no, I'd much rather be in pain and make sure everyone else was all right. But this sort of thing is gonna help you so much in your recovery, because you're not having to, instead, right, you stress about putting a boundary down, and you might stress and feel guilty about doing it for a bit, but the more that time goes on and the more that you enforce that boundary, the less that will happen. So that trigger starts to fade away.
Yeah.
You're not putting yourself in that anxiety pool anymore of having to constantly firefight that bullshit and, like you say, keep all the plates spinning. That goes away because you don't have that anxiety anymore. You chose yourself. The boundaries are different, sort of like weird fear for a while, weird guilt, maybe a bit of shame and stuff thrown in. But again, it does fade, and you don't have to face all that anxiety anymore. It just literally just diminishes it. It goes away.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. It's not easy. It's not easy by any means.
No. but I just feel so, you know, it's hard and all that kind of stuff, but I feel so grateful that I found all this work, because
right.
It's tough, and sometimes I'm like, oh, kind of, maybe, you know, I wish I wasn't having to deal with it, but actually, you know what, like, I'm learning so much about myself with it, and I'm fascinated in hearing from other people. And that, by the way, is why I think this is awesome, because the success stories are amazing and so inspiring. I think when you're taking time over it, though, to hear just people's experience, and I love the Facebook groups for that, is brilliant. Like, I feel like I'm learning so much, and you know, I feel like I will be better off at the end of all of this than I was before. I do get that.
Absolutely. It's 100% life changing. And like I said on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, like, so much will change in your life, but the most important thing I think that's changed for me is my relationship with myself. Like, you can become so detached with who you actually are, what you actually like, what you actually want, what you're doing, because you're so frantically trying to make sure that everyone else is all right. You forget what you actually like. Who even am I? I see out of my eyes, out of this body, but that's probably about it. Like, what do I want? What do I feel about things, or what do I need? You know? And a bit of peace from certain things that stress you out, whether that hurts other people to take that space. It's worth doing, because it brings you to a level of peace and acceptance about yourself that is just completely priceless. And it is so worth doing that. And you know, people will overcome everything in time. I think it just takes a bit of adjustment for you, putting these boundaries in place or making these changes in your life. And then the other people that they may affect will hopefully adjust and adapt and accept in time as well. So you're about to find yourself.
I can't wait.
I'm excited for you.
Oh, thank you.
I am so excited for you.
This. Are you? Thank you. That's nice.
Yeah,
I am as well.
It's just your world's. I mean, you're in the thick of it, but your world's about to just be blown apart, and it might hurt for a bit in a different way, in an emotional, like, psychological way. But you come out of this a completely different person. No, some people say to me, like, you actually look different than you used to look.
Really?
My life's totally different now, but I feel like I actually know who I am and what I like and what I want, and I'm not afraid to say that or do that, you know. That's definitely part of the learning, and this work has taught me all those things. And like you said before, you hate your pain. Your pain is like the devil. I now feel like I'm grateful for it, which sounds utterly ridiculous when you're in the thick of it. I hated it too. It was like, what on earth have I ever done to deserve this? But it is just like a messenger, like a little baby version of yourself knocking on the door going, Charlotte, can you listen? Can you listen? I'm hurting in here. Can you just listen and help, you know?
I get it. Like, it really is. And if I think about, like, when I was young, where I would have wanted to be now is in many ways so different. And because a lot of decisions I've made, as I'm sure some people, this will resonate, are because of people's opinions of me and giving a strong view of where I should be and what I should be doing and all of that. And I think the pain is like, come on now, like, you can't do this for another 30 years. Like, you've got to make a decision now and do something about it. So
it's like a great big alarm bell, isn't it? Like, enough now. Yeah.
You can't do this much longer. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
No, not at all.
I hope that we do more things, and even if this series is just this one. It's been great.
I'm sure it won't be. I want to hear from other people, though, so I'm hoping that some other people will, but I'm sure they will. I think there's so much that we can all learn from each other. I really believe that. So it's
definitely good. There's so many voices and so many people in these communities that have got their amazing light bulb moments and just different things to share. I think it's really cool and just see people face to face as well. It's nice to actually put a face to a name and see you smile and all that, and your bubble of a world over there that's about to become very colourful and shiny.
Yes. And muggy.
I wish you all the best. All right. And I hope to catch up with you again soon.
Cool. All right. Take care. Thank you.
Bye. That was Charlotte Faul joining us from Singapore. Thank you, Charlotte, for taking the time to do this. And I hope that you enjoyed the conversation. if you want to take part in sharing your story, if you've got any kind of light bulb moments or brainstorms, that's the wrong word, milestones you want to share, let me know. Go to mytmsjourney.com/stories, and you can submit your story there, or find me on social media on Instagram or on Facebook at My TMS Journey. There's loads of ways you can get in touch with me, or by email. Just reach out and let me know if you want to take part and if this story helped you. Let's carry on the conversation on social. And yeah, I look forward to hearing more stories and sharing more with the community and just getting to know you guys a little bit better. I wish you all the best. Have a great weekend. Well, it'll be the weekend here now, probably not where you are by the time this goes live, but I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining.